Okay, let's jump right into one of the most pressing local issues we're seeing all across the country. You already know data centers are springing up literally everywhere to keep our digital lives running. But what we're going to unpack in this explainer is the massive dilemma this is creating for the actual towns hosting them. We'll look at what really happens when tech giants move in, and crucially, how communities can actually take back control. So let's kick things off with a number that is honestly kind of staggering. 30 million. That's 30 million gallons of water drained by a single data center down in Fayetteville, Georgia. And you know what the wildest part about this is? This massive drain went completely unnoticed by local regulators until residents literally started complaining that they had low water pressure in their own homes. Just imagine turning on your kitchen faucet to make dinner and finding out a server farm down the street has been quietly guzzling up the town's water supply. It really puts the sheer scale of these facilities into perspective. So that brings us to section 1, real costs to residents. We're talking about the hidden impact on your checkbook and your backyard. Because the environmental strain, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There is a very real direct hit to your wallet. Take Oregon, for example. The state utility board there found undeniable evidence that the massive costs of serving these new data centers are basically being passed on to everyday customers. By year 4, some residents were hit with utility bill increases of over 50%. So basically, every time you pay your electric bill, you're subsidizing the massive energy appetite of these tech facilities. And man, it is not just your wallet taking a hit. Look at Northern Virginia, specifically Loudoun County, which people often call the data center capital of the world. Residents there are absolutely fed up. They've been flooding regulators with complaints, and for good reason. They're dealing with the constant, never-ending ambient hum of massive cooling systems, not to mention the toxic fumes spewing from backup generators. They're literally living next to industrial-scale machines that never, ever sleep. So what you get is this intense David versus Goliath situation. On one side, you've got the general public, just everyday folks trying to live their lives. And on the other, you've got massive tech developers, huge energy companies, and sometimes even the state government. It's really no surprise that the public often feels like they have absolutely zero leverage here and are just being forced to cave to demands without getting anything in return. But hey, here's the good news. We don't have to choose between going broke and giving up our local resources. We don't have to just roll over. Let's move on to section 2, protecting utilities and resources, which is basically the playbook for local jurisdictions. Because local governments actually have a powerful set of tools to neutralize these massive threats. For instance, if grid strain is the issue, the tool is enforcing peak load tariffs and mandating clean power. If water loss is the threat, well, the jurisdiction can mandate closed-loop cooling and put strict caps on water withdrawals. Let's actually break down how these tools work in the real world to protect taxpayers. Okay, so to protect local energy costs and keep your bills from going through the roof, towns can basically force data centers to fund 100% of their own infrastructure upgrades. That means they pay for the new substations and high-voltage lines, not you. Plus, towns can make developers sign 15 to 20-year contracts that guarantee they pay peak load energy tariffs. They can even require them to bring in their own clean energy. We're talking solar arrays, battery storage, maybe even small modular reactors. Oh, and they can set strict limits on how much grid power these centers can suck up during extreme hot or cold days when the community actually needs it the most. And what about the water? To avoid a repeat of that Fayetteville, Georgia situation where the town's water supply was basically drained dry, jurisdictions have some pretty aggressive options. They can require closed-loop air or liquid-to-air cooling systems for any new facilities, which cuts down water waste dramatically. They can also legally cap how much potable water the center can withdraw every day or week. And maybe the best part? They can slap a per-gallon usage surcharge on the developers. And that money doesn't just vanish into some general fund. It can be specifically earmarked to improve local water infrastructure, like restoring watersheds and upgrading stormwater systems. Now, obviously, keeping the lights on and the water flowing is really only half the battle when you've got an industrial facility right in your backyard. So let's jump into section 3, stopping noise and pollution and silencing that ambient hum. To finally silence that maddening, low-frequency hum from cooling chillers and exhaust fans, local governments can just rewrite their zoning standards. They can force developers to install sound attenuators and acoustic baffles. They can even make them build complete physical enclosures around those massive rooftop chillers. But honestly, the real game changer here is implementing mandatory, continuous public noise monitoring dashboards. This means the data isn't hidden away in a filing cabinet somewhere. It's fully public, holding the facility accountable in real time if they ever exceed the noise limits. And then, of course, there's air quality. To stop the release of nitrogen oxides and nasty particulate matter from those huge diesel backup generators, towns have to demand clean backup power. We're talking top-tier generators, green hydrogen fuel cells, or massive battery storage systems. And just as importantly, towns can strictly limit the testing of these generators to non-peak daytime hours. Actually, they can even cap the total testing hours per year, so residents aren't breathing in exhaust fumes while they're trying to sleep. Win-win. Okay, so all these regulations and zoning updates are fantastic for mitigating harm. But how do we make sure the community actually benefits from hosting these massive facilities? How do you turn a potential burden into a real asset for the town? That brings us to Section 4, Community Benefit Agreements, defining the win for the public. The ultimate equalizer in all these negotiations is a Community Benefit Agreement, or a CBA. Basically, this is a legally binding contract between the data center developer and the local community. It takes all those nice PR promises and turns them into strict legal requirements, guaranteeing that real, measurable benefits go directly back into the town. When a town negotiates a strong CBA, they can lock in some pretty incredible perks. They can mandate the use of local labor and prevailing wages for all that construction, which is a massive boost for the local economy. Plus, a chunk of the huge revenue these data centers pull in can be contractually funneled directly into local schools, park upgrades, and financial support for first responders. They can even use it to directly subsidize and reduce local energy costs for residents. It totally transforms the developer from an annoyance into an actual contributing member of the community. There is a massive catch, though. For any of this to actually work, transparency absolutely has to be mandatory. Towns have got to eliminate those shady non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, that developers love to use. Those NDAs are literally designed to hide vital information from the public. Stuff like environmental impact studies, the true numbers on power and water demand, and those complex tax abatement calculations that show exactly how much money the developer is saving. Open public monitoring is quite frankly the only way to ease the genuine, valid concerns of the residents. Because the reality is, local jurisdictions really do need diverse revenue streams if they want to survive without relying totally on federal funding. And data centers, they can absolutely be a brilliant solution to that financial problem. But, and this is a big but, only as long as the community is treated as a true equal partner. That means sharing the financial benefits, fiercely protecting the local environment, and keeping everything completely transparent and accountable every step of the way. So as these multi-billion-dollar tech facilities inevitably start eyeing your town or your county for their next massive development, you've got a critical question to ask your local representatives. Will your community use this playbook to become an equal, thriving partner in the digital revolution? Or will it just let itself become another drained, noisy, and overpriced power grid? The tools are right there for the taking. It's up to us to actually use them.